Welcome to my channel. This topic of discussion today has to do with economics. If you're not interested in economics, change the channel, because this one is a fairly serious conversation point about how economics is failing in the United States, and in specific in California, and to be very, very specific, in Monterey, California. And this is from my own personal experience. So I'm not here to tell you that your experience is going to be better or worse. I'm going to tell you about my personal experience with economics and the lack of training of economic values from our education system in Monterey, California, Pacific Grove to be very, very specific, and Carmel to be specific past that. I've been in the workforce roughly 32 years. And in 32 years, I've seen the economy grow, and I've seen the economy decline, and I've seen us have recessions and boom times and all that stuff. And in the reality, the way the inflation has worked and the way that people are operating to pay for stuff, and this is where it gets kind of crazy. The way people pay for stuff has changed, and the reason for purchasing things has changed dynamically. I'm going to give you a 32-year shift. So when I was first getting into the workforce, minimum wage was roughly $4 an hour or something like that. Very small, very low minimum wage, making almost nothing to work for an hour. And after I turned about 25, so from 16 to 25 is the time frame, I started realizing that the economics, I couldn't keep up with the economic inflation. So in that roughly 9-year period, I learned a very valuable lesson, which was the inflation rate was exceeding my income. I could never buy a house. And around that time, we started having an implosion of our economy, and it took another 4 or 5 years for that implosion to happen until about 2008. And then we had an economic implosion because people were purchasing homes with no money down, interest-only financing. Horrible, horrible economic situation. Should have never been allowed to happen. It was a failure of the banks as well as the federal government, and then the inability of people to understand economics. And then the inability for them to understand their own economics, they failed. And they turned over a lot of really expensive housing down to really cheap housing, and a lot of really, really rich people got really, really richer, and the inflation increased. So when I turned about 30, and that had been some years of working at that point, I came to the realization that this wasn't working. And I became self-employed at that point because I no longer could afford to work for the company that I worked for, which was my own parents' company, because they refused to pay me a higher wage for services rendered while they're paying other employees more than my wages. And they claimed a ridiculous idea, which is it's what the economy will bear or something. And so I was not going to make more money, in which case I became self-employed. And from the age of 30 to the age of 48 where I am now. That's 18 years. I've seen the economy grow and I've seen the economy shrink. I've seen us go through another recession. I've seen us go into a depression. I've seen us go through wars. And you know, inflation, there's this inflation rate and it was creeping up, but we could handle it because when I turned 30, I jumped my pay rate from $14 an hour to $20 an hour. And I held it there so that way I could keep being employed. Well, I held it there for years and I didn't take any increases because no one could purchase my work at higher rates. So $20 an hour, I was roughly getting hired on a regular basis. And the minimum wage was like $7 an hour. So between $7 an hour and $20 an hour is a good differential for me to be able to keep owning tools and purchasing fuels and eating food and stuff. And recently, it's now 2024, recently the governor of the state of California has determined in his infinite wisdom, because he's so intelligent, that a very select group of people would make $20 an hour working at fast food chains. So now the effective minimum wage in California is $20 an hour. Well, I only make $25 an hour, and I've been in construction, carpentry, welding, blacksmithing, debris removal, hauling. I've done all kinds of stuff. So effectively, I'm basically at minimum wage again. And for me to double my rates to effectively get enough money to be able to stay in Monterey, California, I have to make my rates something like $40 an hour. And here's the reality. People want me to work, but they don't want to pay me. Or they don't have the money to pay me, but they need the work done. And so what's happening is I give them an idea of how much it's going to cost or my hourly rate, and they go hire somebody cheaper. And if I keep my rates at $25 an hour, I become homeless and broke and jobless and no car, because I can't keep up with the inflation rate of the fuel, the food, the water, the costs of doing anything. Is why would I work if I'm going to make minimum wage? I made minimum wage when I started working. I should not be making minimum wage as a middle-aged adult. And yet the homeowners that purchase the homes and the business owners that purchase the businesses cannot or are not willing to afford high-quality labor at rates that are applicable to that labor and that experience. And we're talking not cheap people. We're talking people that buy homes at like $5.5 million. And they're like, can you sharpen your pencil a little bit? No, there's no sharpening pencils. There's no taking dollar signs off. I can't go to Home Depot and negotiate a lower price. I can't go to the gas station and negotiate a lower price. Oh, gas station, you know, I'm just not willing to pay $6 a gallon. Can you break that down to $4 a gallon? They're not going to do that. I go to the supermarket and I say, man, that loaf of bread is $8. Man, could you break that back down to $4? They're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. So the inflation rate is consistent, and the ability to get paid is inconsistent. And now $20 an hour is the minimum wage in California. And the housing. To rent a single bedroom apartment in Monterey, California right now is over $3,000 a month. So what are all the people doing that work at regular jobs at Ace Hardware or Safeway or Lucky's or Togo's, or how are they going to afford $3,000 a month? Even at $20 an hour, they can't afford it. It's still a loss. Even if they worked 40 hours a week, 4 weeks a month, they can't make it. They don't even make the rent. So the minimum wage isn't working. And you can't hire a guy to make a sandwich at $40 an hour because you never make any money making sandwiches. And right now, to make a sandwich at a Subway or Togo or something, it's like $15 for that sandwich. Matter of fact, you go anywhere, you go to a restaurant, you go to a sandwich shop, you go to 7-Eleven, you go to Safeway, and you buy food. In general, the general cost per meal is about $15 per meal. It's a lot of money. I don't know what to do about it. I know this, I cannot work for minimum wage with 32 years of experience under my belt and think I'm going to make it. That's economically stupid. That would be economic stupidity on a grand scale. So this affects not just one industry. This affects all industries. This affects the party rental equipment industry. This is going to affect the coffee shops, where you get coffee every day. This is going to affect the guys gardening for you, the guys that are trimming your lawns and your gardens. And it definitely affects the guys that are building your homes because they can't just go to their boss and be like, boss, I'm a high-level carpenter. I was making $30 an hour, but I got to make 60 now. They can't do it. They'll be fired because the boss can't afford the pay raise to give the high-quality carpenters a way to make money, because when they go out to bid their jobs, they give the job bid to the client who's paying all this money to get this house built. And the client goes, how much? And they go, yeah, it's like $350 a square foot. You got, you got 2,000 square feet. It's going to be $500,000 and more. And that's before we have complications, errors, and excessive fees of materials going up. So what is 2,000 square feet times 350? It's like $700,000. Build a house. To rebuild a bathroom right now is in the $80,000 range. To remodel a bathroom, $80,000. That's to make everybody in the chain of labor make money and to pay for all the materials and for the corporation, the business, to actually make some money. And I have contractors right now that are bidding jobs, and they put out 12 bids, 0 takes. Now, to do a bid on a job takes like a week of preparation, a week of setup, a week of talking to people. It's like a month of work. And they got $0 for it and zero confirmations on bids. 0. Because the price is so astronomically high. The homeowner's like, ooh, yeah, I can't do that. And then they go find somebody cheaper. Well, the cheaper person's, 1, not a contractor. 2, they don't have the education to build the project. 3, they're probably not getting permits, and they probably don't have workman's comp liability insurance and all that. 4, they're probably hiring people that don't have the education to actually get the job done because they're probably not from this country. 5, all that's illegal in the state of California. And homeowners are going to a process where they're hiring people cheaper Then the people do this terrible job. The homeowner goes, "You're fired," comes back to a contractor and has to pay double the money to get it done, because they have to tear out whatever the non-contractor did and replace it with contracted work. I'm going to give you a good example of how crazy this is. So I have a plumber contractor that I work with, and the plumber contractor comes to me and says, "Hey, Seth, how much do you think installing a 50-gallon water heater is?" Well, water heaters used to be $300, by the way. Not even that long ago, like 2012. It's 2024 now. So in 2012, they're like $350. Okay. It takes to replace a water heater with a professional contractor, it takes about an hour and a half to replace the water heater. It takes usually about $150 in parts. That's been fairly standard for the last 20 years. So I quoted him. I said, "Hey, currently a water heater, a 50-gallon water heater is like $1,500, right?" He goes, "Yeah, that's right." I go, "It's $150 in parts. So that's 1,500, that's $1,650. And it's maximum 2 hours of labor at $125 an hour. So that's another $250. So 250, 300, 400. So you're looking at $1,900. You add some tax in, you throw in some profit, you're about $2,000 to $2,200 for a profitable situation to replace a 50-gallon residential water heater." He goes, "Yeah, that's what I thought." Guess how much they're actually charging? Guess how much the plumbing companies, the big boys, are charging? And I have no idea. They're charging $2,700. He goes, "No, they're charging $7,000 to replace a 50-gallon water heater. That's more than 3 times the actual cost of a licensed contractor plumber to replace a water heater. Over 3 times. That's ridiculous." It's absolutely ridiculous. And these are known companies. These are well-established companies in the Monterey Peninsula and San Jose. These are not just fly-by-night people. These are companies that you'd find in a phone book or in a diligent Google search, that are high-quality companies, that are contractors, that do this for a living, and they know exactly how much it costs. And they're charging 3 times the amount that it costs to actually do it. And it's ruthless, because somebody out there is actually paying it. That's how they can charge that price. Because that's the state of the economy right now. State of the economy is you just have to charge an outrageous price. I don't want to do that. I don't want to take advantage of my customers. The way I stay operable is that I don't destroy my customers economically to make a profit. But we've created a situation in California where it's so blatantly ridiculous to try and make money, because there's this huge differential. There's billionaires, there's millionaires, there's thousandaires, and then there's hundredaires. And unfortunately, most people live in the hundredaires area where they're only making hundreds of dollars. Then there's the thousandaires, which are the people that make like minimum wage. And then there's the millionaires that have nothing to do with the people that are making thousands of dollars. They're millionaires. And then there's billionaires. And the billionaires have nothing to do with the people making millions of dollars. And the outrageousness of it has to do with something that I've seen happen over the last 32 years, which is the housing prices. And a house is a depreciating asset because the house is decaying after it's built. It's instantaneously starting to break down over time. So a depreciating asset like a house should lose value over the existence of the house because termite damage, rodent damage, weather damage, sun damage, obsolescence of equipment, dry rot, roofs get worn out, windows fail, plumbing fails, all this stuff fails, electrical things change. So the house should be a depreciating asset, but in California, and I'm not sure if this is the same in other states, they're linking the value of the house to the value of the land, and they're saying that the house value is doubling, and it shouldn't be. That's a faux pas. So the house is worth less than its original construction every day. But the land value goes up because the land is an asset, and they've linked the two together, which is an error. It's an economic training error. Anyone purchasing a house right now should laugh at the seller if they try and get a penny more for the house than the original construction cost. Because most people have to go in and remodel the house to make it usable again because it's been decaying since its construction inception. So if a house is $500,000 with its land and you have to go in and gut the house and spend $350 a square foot to remodel the house, you're spending another $500,000. Now you're up to $1 million to live in a house that you just bought. Oh, and by the way, it takes like a year and a half to do the remodel. So you can't even live in the house while the remodel is happening because it's under construction. And then the assessment office comes in and reassesses the value of the property, and hey, you got to pay higher taxes because now the house is worth more again. See how this is a double-edged slash you this way, slash you that way, bad idea? And people are buying houses in California with this ridiculous idea that they're assets, when in actuality, they're not technically assets, they're liabilities. Because they're failing over time. They need maintenance, paint, repair, constant this, that, the other, washing, power washing, cleaning. Don't let it go for under your house. You'll settle the foundation and crack the foundation. Okay? So this is the error, and we've watched this error happen over and over and over again, where the connection of the land and the house have been attached, and it's wrong. It's incorrect. And it's immoral to do this because it causes poverty on an economic scale that's crazy. It causes inflation cycles that are out of this world. And it's all based on greed. So now me, as a person that does labor and works for a living, I now have to charge these homeowners outrageous prices because the inflation and the attachment of the value of their house has gone up so high. So it's stuff to think about, but it's an economic error, and it's a training error in our society. And we need to correct it because we're about to create a lot of poverty. And I don't mean a little bit. I mean a lot of poverty. And the kind of poverty that we're going to create is the kind where the construction people, the last industrial sector in America, the last industry, which is construction, is going to fail. And when that fails, we have no industry left. We only have commercial and residential. And you can't support residential pricing with commercial jobs. Commercial jobs don't make enough money to support residential. You have to have the industry that builds stuff, that pays the higher wages to support the commercial and the residential. You have to have all three. Oh, and by the way, this is going to affect agriculture, which is technically an industry, but it's kind kind of what our whole country is founded on, is agriculture. It's going to implode agriculture as well, because nobody can work for wages so high and pick lettuce. And you can't have a machine do it all. It's just not reasonable. So it's going to affect everything. And that's going to cause the food prices to skyrocket, which they're already doing. It's going to cause everything to skyrocket, and it's going to implode our economy. And if nobody's saying this to you, I'm saying this to you. And if you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and share it with a friend. If you don't want to hear about this content and you don't want to know anything about it, go watch something else. As far as I can tell, this is reality. And the reality is getting really expensive. A cup of coffee used to be 50 cents. It's now $4.50. Cup of coffee. Coffee. It's water and coffee grounds and a cup. It's literally about 22 cents worth of materials. Maxed out, most expensive cups that you can think of, paper cups that you can think of, about 22 cents in materials. It's about 5 cents for the coffee and the water, and the rest is the cup. The cups are pretty expensive because they're made out of paper and they're manufactured. And the plastic lid. Cup of coffee. You extrapolate the cup of coffee up to owning a house. It's not working. Stuff to think about, but seriously not working. And then these things, these devices that I'm doing all this on, it's like $150 a month to maintain a cell phone service. Home phones maxed out. Landlines used to be maxed out. Used to be about $60 a month. That was with all the things you could possibly use. And that's gone from $60 a month to $150 to $200 a month. So it's mass insanity. I mean, we get to do a lot of stuff with these cell phones, you know, but a lot of computations and stuff. There's some benefits, videos and stuff. We can do a lot of research remotely, but it's really spread our society out. And as we spread our society out, we don't congregate as much and do as much thinking. And the further away we are from each other, the more likely we are to be overcome by stupidity, such as what the government's doing to us now. Stuff to think about. Leave your comments below. If you have a different opinion, you want to share it, make a video and put it out there. That way other people can see a different point of view. If you have positive, negative, or otherwise, go out there and figure out who wants to hear it, who wants to listen, and who wants to participate. I'm going to go plant more trees. I'm going to help save the world and make it a better place. And I'm doing so in that garden right there. Have a great day.